Hello, everyone. I'm Sientir, and welcome to VOD of Consciousness, where I talk about whatever comes to mind while playing video games, or, sometimes things that I bring to mind. So last time, we got royally wrecked by a cave full of ice imps, and I kind of want to go back there and see what's going on, because that was unusual and strange. What that does mean is that we have a lot of trekking through this beautiful mountainous area, devoid of enemies because we already killed them all. That's just how it works, I guess. So, we have a little bit of time to fill until I get to some interesting action. Shouldn't take too terribly long. It's just a little bit of a trek, but I do actually really like the way that they handle party wipes and stuff in this game. It's something that I've talked about with vernacular games in Game Over, that series that we did on handling Game Over. But Guild Wars 1, when all of your party wipes, so first of all, if one person goes down, there's a potential for other party members to use skills, resurrection skills, to bring them back up. But if all of your party members go down, then a resurrection shrine you'll resurrect at the nearest resurrection shrine. So one of the things, though, that they do to kind of discourage, shall we say, a reckless abandon is death penalty. So death penalty is an effect that is tied into the morale system as well. I'll get into that in a moment. But when you go down, you get 15% death penalty, which reduces your maximum health and energy by 15%. So you can have up to 60% death penalty, which is quite strong, quite severe, and that's extremely debilitating to have only 40% of your maximum health and energy. But you can get morale boosts. Usually those are 2%, and that erases death penalty. So death penalty is the minus, morale boosts are the plus. And you can go up to plus 10% morale boost, so that's plus 10% maximum health and energy. Obviously not quite as strong, but this was kind of made for PvP, a system for player versus player for competition, so they kind of balanced it around that concept. So anyway, we're going to be entering in this cave here that was ludicrously full of ice imps. Like, that's just, look at how many ice imps there are. This is a very weird spawn. Usually there would be a bunch of those outside and not just inside. So I don't know what's up that caused this to happen. But we're just going to jump right in and try to take out some of these imps. So there's a big cluster over there. Yeah, panic's gonna do work. And yeah, you can see that we're doing okay in trying to take care of them. But one of the problems that's happening is, you remember I mentioned a skill called Maelstrom? They're dropping that all over our back line. And that is causing huge problems. So, Maelstrom, unfortunately, causes spells to be interrupted. And that's causing... this is really intense, so... Sorry, I'm having a hard time focusing on talking. But that's causing... a lot of problems for our healers, because they cannot keep up with what they need to do to try to keep everybody alive. This is going to take several attempts to clear. I do kind of want to clear it just because it's really weird and it's kind of interesting. But anyway, Maelstrom, because it interrupts spellcasting, means that our backline is being hampered from trying to heal us. So our monks, for example, are trying to cast their spells, but they're getting interrupted. So you'll notice we have 458 health now. We had more earlier, 25 energy. Our maximum is 30, so that is being slowly decreased. I don't know what our maximum health is off the top of my head, but whatever. But I find this strange spawn to be oddly compelling for some reason. So I'm taking it out. Yeah, it's actually interesting. Something that I'd like to see in games is more procedural, sort of random stuff. There's a Dark Souls board game that I've seen Lobos play, and that game's really interesting in the way that it's set up because it has encounters that are like a predefined encounter, but because they're on cards, you kind of get those encounters randomly when you go into a room. So what it'll be is like you go into a room and you draw this type of encounter and it tells you what things go where. And so there's different nodes where things can spawn, as it were, and you put enemies there, and the enemies are kind of randomized. But it makes for a slightly different experience when you go into a room, which they need to do because the rooms are fairly similar otherwise. But it's interesting to think about how you could apply that sort of technology, that sort of idea, to a video game itself to shake up how things play. One of the things that I really like is the idea of how do we get more replayability into games, particularly single-player experiences, things like that, where to some extent it's how do I handle the situation that becomes very interesting. That's what I like about Dark Souls, is it's a problem-solving combat game where you have to solve how do I handle this particular group of enemies. Like, even right now, for example, with a group of enemies here with all of these imps, this is not how I'd ideally want to go about trying to deal with them. I would want more panic mesmers. But the point that or actually probably also some rangers with days and dervishes would be better even. But the point I'm getting at here is there's still a bunch of imps, but we've cleared out a lot of them. But yeah, the point that I'm getting at is ways of changing up how a game plays. Try to figure out, because one of the things that's really exciting about Dark Souls is learning how to handle a particular any given encounter, right? And so changing things up to make the game able to allow you on multiple playthroughs to have different encounter structures, I think is really an interesting concept. And I would like to set things up so that way that's an aspect of the game more. Just because I think that would be really interesting to do. And I'm focusing on trying to deal with all of these imps. I spread days out on them, so that's helping. Days increases cast time as well as making spells easily interruptible. No, I should not stand in the maelstrom. It's a good idea to not stand in area of effect spells. Okay, there we go. It took a few times, but we cleared them out. So let's go ahead and look at this interesting area. I did not get a Icy Dragon Sword, but that is okay. They dropped a lot of just loose gold, which I find very interesting. So we have this weird dish here. Nobody knows quite what this is for, as far as I'm aware anyway. Just this weird dish that makes this weird sound. And here it is, I guess. I don't know why I have this ruby key. I'm just going to drop it. Spot where you can get it is easy enough to get more. I want this frigid heart because I think you can get granite out of it, and granite's useful. There's also, if I'm not mistaken, what tonic is this? Zenmai? Yeah, never mind that one. Yeah, there is. I believe there's a seer up this way, which there's some interesting lore with them fighting against the Mersat, etc. And here's an ice beast or an eidolon. These are actually rather peculiar. I don't know what that guy was doing way up there. All the spawns have been really wonky. But it has mist form, which used to make things immune to physical damage, and now does some healing stuff. So they've changed around how some stuff works. I don't think this Frozen Remnant is really where it's at here. As your shadows are kind of annoying. They use a bunch of strongish smiting prayer stuff. They have weird builds, is the main point. So I don't care about the Azure Remains, but the Spectral Essence could be vaguely useful. Like I said, there's a Seer up here, and the Seer will infuse your armor. I'm just going to get this infused. This is just a lore story type thing of significance, so I don't know if they've expanded on the Seer Mersat lore in Guild Wars 2 or not, but now this piece is infused. It's just a little tag on your armor that reduces the damage you take from a skill that all Mersat have. So, anyway, that's going to conclude what I wanted to do in this particular zone. So, the next elite skill that I want to get, I need to look up. Okay, so there's Shared Burden and there's Crippling Anguish. Crippling Anguish can be found in a bajillion different places. But I think one of the easier places to get it is actually over in Factions. So, there's a couple of elite skills that I want to get from the Factions area. So what that means is it's time to leave here and go to Kaineng Center. So for the actual plot, it would be going up over that way. But we're not interested in doing that. We are interested in other things. Do I want to keep running this? I don't think I do. Go ahead and drop this for domination magic again. And stunning strike. I mean, I want more interesting elites at some point, but right now it's a lot of decent stuff that's not terribly fascinating to use. I'm just going to bring some overload and maybe an aneurysm over there for the moment. Actually, yeah, for the moment. I'm going to need to clear out my inventory. And this place is very complex. This guy probably has a bunch of quests for us. Yeah, whatever. I don't care about your chef and his chefy problems. Okay, so I'm going to look at those exact zones in a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and actually go over this way and get ourselves the mission opened, because why not? So it's Raisu Pavilion to get to Raisu Palace. And for this, we actually go talk to the palace guard, Tsunkim. Taking back the palace. Let's go. I am ready. Yes. It's just such a ridiculous sequence of things. It's important when you're creating games to, like, confirm that players want to do certain types of actions. Ooh, we have plot. So all those monsters with Shiro's spirit there are corrupted things that he's made. The Shiroken, which have their own sorts of powers and stuff.
Lock down the palace! Activate the defenses!
Sir, our men are out there too. They'll be killed.
Don't fool yourself, soldier. Those men are already dead. And we will be too if you don't do as I tell you.
As you command.
This game does not have the best cutscenes. Factions Has some really cool stuff going on, but there's a lot of stuff that has slightly lower quality. And the players definitely noticed.
My Emperor! The palace is surrounded and the main hall is under attack. It will not be long before the walls of this chamber are breached. We must take you to safety.
We're surrounded. By whom? Who would attack the royal palace?
He has returned, my Emperor. Shiro Tagachi.
Shiro has some very powerful skills when you fight him. Spoilers, you fight him. And dealing with him requires some specific care
Worst.
in your
All in
build
good time,
to
Emperor.
deal with what he
All in
does.
good time.
So he in particular has some very powerful area of effect skills and stuff like that on his attacks and all sorts of crazy stuff. So when you're dealing with him, you want to deal heavily in Punisher hexes. Here's Uncorrupted Kunavang. This palace is absolutely enormous, by the way.
Palace has been breached. The Emperor is within Shiro's grasp.
My friends, there are more spirit warriors on the horizon. They will arrive at the palace gates within the hour.
Once inside the palace walls, we cannot afford to be caught between two forces. We'll get cut to pieces.
Menlo is right. We will have to split up. Some of you will have to stay here and hold this gate.
And this is where we pick a bunch of henchmen. A couple henchmen to go with us and the rest of them to chill here. Yeah, it will be a thing that I will not do right now because we decidedly don't have time. I will clean up my inventory and look up the exact thing that I'm going to go to next between episodes. But for now, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.